At this time, we're going to move on to the reading of our Daily Word. Daily Word is a publication of Unity Worldwide Ministries that they've been publishing actually this year for 100 years. And our word for today, October 20th, can you believe that? October 20th, 2024 is loving. And our affirmation is, the boundless love of God expresses through me. I am loving. Will you join me in that affirmation, please, together? The boundless love of God expresses through me. I am loving. To be loving means to be kind, understanding, and generous. It means forgiving grievances easily and seeking to understand myself and others. In striving to be loving towards others, I begin with myself. Exercising self-compassion when I make a mistake makes forgiving others easier. Taking time for self-care makes it more natural for me to be a nurturing presence for others. Treating myself well helps make my generosity spontaneous and frequent. Love is the very nature of God. I am a spiritual being, which means love is my nature too. Through my loving nature, I'm positive, optimistic, hopeful, and faith-filled. I am the heart and the hands of God on earth. I am loving. And our scripture this morning is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 and 7, and it reads, love is patient, love is kind. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. Again, our word for today is loving, and if you'll join me one more time in our affirmation together, please. The boundless love of God expresses through me, and so it am loving. Sorry about that. So it is.
And so we take a breath, 2 breaths, whatever we feel in our body that we need to get to that place of relaxation. As we breathe, we allow ourselves a check-in with our body. Are there places where there's stress? Are there places where we are feeling a little tightened up? If there are, this is the time to, as we breathe in, knowing that we are breathing in the breath of God, we bring it, direct it to those places, sending them the love, the light, the relaxation, the reinvigoration of Godness. This divine inner hug that happens as we breathe in the awareness that we are breathing within God. Call it what you will. Source, creation, universal law, divine flow. We are within that oneness with every breath. As we bring our attention to that breath, it becomes a powerful, powerful process of revitalization and relaxation. So with every breath in, bring that breath right to where it feels it is needed. Where is the divine awareness a little less aware in this moment? Bring that breath there. Allow whatever those spaces and places or thoughts or situations within us that we're holding, allow those to be bathed in the presence of Godness awareness. That divine flow energy bringing them peace, healing, acceptance, love, the awareness of wholeness. And with every out breath, we just allow whatever was pent up to just neutralize and go back out into the oneness. Knowing that we're whole in the intake and the outflow. We are one within the oneness every single second. With that awareness of being one, eachness within the wholeness. We just take a moment for gratitude for this vehicle we move through life in, this body of ours that we inhabit. From our mind and the thoughts that we hold that nurture, that grow us, that stretch us. Our eyes that see, our ears that hear. For these senses that we have within this body, the things that we feel and see and hear, taste, touch, the awareness that we bring to each one of those. Our shoulders that can sometimes feel like they hold so much. We thank them for shouldering the load. Our strong back that helps us stand tall in the face of adversity and to reach high and grab for that big giant hug. To our gut, our inner intuition in the core of us. Thank you. Thank you for guiding, for leading me to the best and highest for my life. For our generative areas and our areas of release, we say thank you. I don't need to carry everything, and I have the ability to birth what is mine to birth in this life. To our muscles, our bones, to our blood, to the oxygen that courses through us, to the electrical impulses within that allow us to think and move, to the legs and feet we stand on, the strength that they have to kneel when needed and get back up and go again. We bless each part of this usness. So grateful for this vehicle that brings us through life, knowing that it is one eachness within the oneness of allness. As we move into the silence today, we just keep that energy going. We send love, gratitude, peace, light, joy into this vehicle that is ours. We find the divine there and we let that divine touch each part of us for just a moment in the silence. And then we just take one more moment just to send love throughout our body. Love and gratitude, cherishing this opportunity, this unique time to be us, to express our individuality into the allness, knowing that we are here by divine appointment to be precisely who we are. Knowing that the what of what we are is the divine incarnated in skin. Grateful for the Godness within, we say, thank you, God. And so it is. So before we sit down, for your consideration, this week in our reading, we've been talking and reading in our quest for wholeness about the yin and the yang. I think we've got it kind of visually covered here. We were saying that we wanted to, through this quest for wholeness that we are doing, through this book process, and again, if you're not reading the book, don't worry. We want this to feed you as well, and we are hoping to do that. But we wanted to do a couple of these services through this process back and forth together. And how many of you are reading the book? How many of you read chapter 3 this week? Okay, all right, good. We've got quite a few hands. So this chapter was a little challenging for a few people, we have heard. And we did our, and we did our Friday, every Friday through this process, we're Zooming. And so we did our Friday Zoom, so we got some really wonderful feedback in the Friday Zoom about what people were taking from this and where they're feeling moved or pushed or pulled. And in a nutshell, this week, this is kind of the key, not just to this book for me, and I don't know about Mike and I were talking about this, but this is kind of the key to really kind of everything for being human in skin. And a big part of this is embracing the shadow. Now, the shadow gets a bad name. The shadow we think of as negative. It just kind of comes that way. I have to laugh. I'm so short that some of the people in the back can't see me. But I think we'll be okay. So the shadow gets this negative connotation and this bad name because it feels like darkness. It feels like something we want to push away from. But Mike said it this week, and I'm going to quote Mike while he sits right next to me because it was so wonderful. He said, what makes it our shadow is that we won't bring it into the light. That's the only thing that makes it our shadow. And people think of it as weaknesses that we're not getting in touch with, or things that we're disassociating from because we don't like them about ourselves. But I hope that after we get done with this conversation, you will all have heard this. The shadow is simply what you have not brought light to. And that can include your very best qualities. That can include your creativity. That can include all of those wonderful things that we fear bringing to light because we may not feel big enough to own them. So we're going to talk a little bit about shadow, but before that,
And right along on piggybacking that, I wanted to clarify something that I said last week, and this chapter so brought it together. And so I want to read a quote from the book, and then, because a lot of times when we talk about wholeness, if you're not careful, you can get into this idea of perfectionism, and that we're trying to fix all the wrong places, and you really sort of have to get out of this right and wrong mentality and understand that wholeness is about completeness. It's about bringing it all together and into oneness. And it doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. We're never, I don't know if this is a spoiler, we're never going to arrive at perfection.
no.
And as I said last week, if you do, you want to see us because we need you to come up here and start sharing.
Yes.
But so it's not perfection, and it's about being complete. And so this chapter really, really spoke to me a lot, and I wish I could say that I had perfected all of this and was putting it all into practice, but it's a really good chapter. But here's the quote I want to read. Perfection suggests something all pure with no blemishes, dark spots, or questionable areas. Wholeness includes even the darkness, but combines the dark elements with the light elements into totality. Generally speaking, the Christian striving has been toward goodness and perfection, not toward wholeness and completion. The movement toward wholeness is a formidable task, for it always involves us in a paradox. And I know, me coming from the Christian walk that I did, we were always striving to become perfect, to become this idea, and you never could reach that, and it was very defeating. And one of the things that I love about unity and this idea of wholeness is it's bringing it all together. It's bringing all of our stuff. And when I hear Jesus say, take up your cross and follow me, that's what I hear him saying now. Get all your stuff and bring it.
Right.
We're going to work on it. This is going to be a journey that you're going to do in life. And it's bringing all those pieces together. And when you do that, you're authentic. You're able to express the full expression of who you are. And that's what we need. We need a community of people who are fully expressing who they are. Dark, light.
Yeah.
Right.
That can be our biggest, not only opportunity for personal healing, but opportunity to bring healing with others. I've had this conversation this week with someone who I have been wanting to get to come here. And this person said, look, I'm just not in a place where I feel whole enough, or where I feel that I can be this example that I want to set for others. And I shared with this person, I said, it's kind of like having kids. If you ever think you are going to have enough money to decide to have kids, or that you're going to be in the right place, or you're going to be totally ready, it's never going to happen, nor should it. There's always a leap of faith required in everything that brings us further in life. And it's us being here and willing to share, warts and all, what's going on that allows other people to see their healing possibilities as well. I shared with someone this week, I don't know that I have ever felt more broken in my life than when I stepped up to take this job. It was in a space in my life where I had no earthly clue what I was supposed to be doing and where I was supposed to be going. And the healing that I have been able to, and Mike and I have talked about this, that we have both been able to collectively experience because we've been willing to go, you know what, I have so much to learn here, let's talk about it. It allows all of us to be in that space. And that's what this chapter really focuses on this week, is that.
I'm so thankful for spirituality that allows me to rise out of my messiness, out of my frustrations, out of my weaknesses, and know that the reality of God and the reality of who I am is not affected and doesn't change based on my messiness. I can bring my mess into that,
right,
and become complete and whole. So
absolutely. And that's it says in this book, the self, we're talking capital S self, which is that Godness within us, that perfection, if you will. But when we say perfection, we don't mean that you're not going to have any blemishes. What we mean is the wholeness of our experience, the wholeness of what we've come here to experience and to share. That self, capital S, the self is both the source and the goal of the wholeness,
Yeah, because I think, and I'm glad you said that, because it triggered, I didn't finish my perfection thought, because in our essence, in our big S self, we are perfect, we are complete, right, we are whole. But in our manifestation and in our daily walk, we shouldn't expect that perfection necessarily. That's part of the expressing and growing.
We wouldn't need to be in skin. Right. If we were absolutely perfect, enlightened beings, we would have no need for carrying this thing around anymore. We would have moved on to a bigger, more spacious notion. We're here in this skin the whole time we're here in it to experience the things of the skin and to remember our source identity as much as we possibly can and express the individuation, this individuality that we have come here. Only we can do what we are meant to do in this world. There's nobody else that can you in this world. And we need you to be fully you. When you try to hide that light under a bushel, it doesn't work. We talked about this. Another analogy that I've always loved is that, when you try to hide parts of yourself or you try to be something that you're not, it's kind of like holding beach balls underwater. You can only hold so many for so long before all of your appendages don't work anymore and up come the beach balls, right? And this is a conversation that I hope we'll touch on and where I want to. Yes. Now, how about? When we were saying that, Mike had expressed, you had talked about like, we try to push away our anger, or we try to push away how we're feeling about something or our sadness. Yeah. You want to share?
Yeah. In my family, we have what we call the Davis temper. And it's one of those things that, we have experienced and saw in various family members. And I won't judge any family members today, I'll just speak from my own experience. But part of my upbringing, I tried to always be in control, tried to always be, the good kid and all those things. So I always pushed away. And part of that experience was not expressing emotions, negative emotions, those bad emotions, right? And so, but when you do that, when you put something, that becomes a shadow. So what would happen is, of course, the beach ball's eventually going to come up, right? So the temper would express, and I would always be caught off guard, like, wow, where did that come from? It's sort of an overreaction. And so that's what happens when you repress those emotions, or those shadows, if you will.
Sorry,
it's
okay. Moving.
Okay. I'm trying not to break into a Madonna song.
Yeah.
So when you put things, that's how the shadow works. So you have to bring it into the light. And so what I had to learn is, it's okay to express those emotions. It's okay to have even what we might consider negative emotions, but how can I express those in a healthy way where it's not going to involve temper or an explosion? And as I began to get in touch with my feelings and my emotions, I was able to do that. So that brought that shadow out of the shadow and sort of integrated it. And that's really what we're talking about here, is bringing ourselves into that wholeness, bringing those parts that we deny or that we try to keep pushed down because we think those are bad or negative. No, they're there for a reason, and they may be an area that we've suffered trauma. And I know you've done a lot of teaching in this, and this book is a great continuation of what you've been here to share with us about. And I so appreciate that, because it is about integration. It is about bringing our divinity and our humanity and bringing that together. That is the wholeness.
That's the wholeness. Yes. And that's the thing too. And we were talking, Mel was on our Zoom call, and we were talking about this a little bit this morning too, of coming to that realization of, so I have anger, I have fear, I have whatever these things are. If we're willing to not see them as negative, we love to categorize everything. And sometimes it really shoots us in the foot. We become so polarizingly opposed to things. I have an example that he uses in the book, and I think it's so helpful that I wanted to share with you. So it's kind of like we do this, okay? I know, my props, right? This isn't mine, this is his. So he said it in the book. So it's as though we have this spectrum of beingness, and we consider this side good and this side bad, and we term each emotion or thing or woundedness either good or bad. And instead of trying to realize that they're all a part of the same continuum, they're all a part of the same rope, we decide we've got to get rid of the bad stuff. So so let's say that this is the good stuff, and across the spectrum I identify something as bad, and so I have to get rid of it. So I cut it off and I get rid of it. There's still this end of the rope. And so then, there's something, I got to cut this off. I can't do this. It's the same rope. It still has what we would consider a good side and a bad side. I don't care how many times you try to cut things off. It's all the same rope. And we will always have polarizations in us and the need to say that something is good and something is bad, as long as we don't integrate its tools, the things that it gives us. The part over here that I might say is bad, my weaknesses or my anger, if I can say, ooh, I'm feeling angry right now, and I'm over here on the spectrum of my wholeness, instead of saying I have to get rid of the anger, it's one in the wholeness. It's a part of me. And if like Mike was saying, if we can say, yes, that is part of me, and furthermore, I have a right to feel this way, what it does is, because so many times we think, I've heard people say it about pain. Oh, I don't want to go back into that again because I don't know if I could survive it again. You already did. You already survived it. And so if you feel something that needs to deal with something that you've already gone through, if you say to that, it's like a ding on your phone, notification, I'm feeling fear, notification, I'm feeling anger. If instead of pushing it down or cutting it off or fighting it or hiding it or burying it, if we go, wow, look at that, I'm really angry. Then we can say to somebody, I need to talk about this with you because I'm really feeling angry about it. Right. Then it doesn't come off as me screaming at Mike. It comes off as me saying, I'm angry. I'm having a hard time with this. Can we talk about it? Now, that might not happen in the moment. Sometimes we're just angry and we can't even articulate, right? Or we're scared and we need a minute to recenter. It might not happen in that very moment, but to be able to say then, as we were discussing on the Zoom and we were all sharing, it isn't about getting rid of anger. We're gonna have anger. It's a human emotion. We're supposed to have it. It's about identifying where it's coming from, what it's attached to, and how can it become a tool to bring me back to my oneness.
And your very illustration of where you said, hey, I'm feeling angry, that's different than saying you made me angry.
There we go.
And because when you don't deal with the shadow, then it becomes a blame game. It becomes somebody else's fault. But when you acknowledge it and you bring it in the light, it becomes something you can own and deal with and actually resolve, right? So that's one of the things that popped in my mind.
That's a big thing. And it's a powerful tool because those places that we feel pushed, well, and it's, okay, so here we go again into the self and the unseen and the shadow. The person that triggers you the most, or have you ever met someone and just immediately thought, ugh? You know, we get that just knee-jerk reaction of, I don't think I like them. They haven't done anything to me. When something like that happens, or when we're finding those spaces in our lives where we are triggered, where we are feeling reactionary, that is a part of us, we call it projection. It is often a part of us that we just refuse to see. So we plaster it onto somebody else. They become our mirror for us. They're showing us this piece of us that we don't want to look at, and that's why we feel that visceral reaction of, oh, I just don't even like the way she showed up. It's the piece of us, there's something in there that we do not want to see, and if you spot it, you got it. Now that doesn't mean it's actively at work in you. It doesn't mean you're walking around being that annoying habit or whatever it is, but it's in you. And the more willing you are to not try to cut the end of the rope off and to say it's part of the rope, it's part of the continuum of me, where in this can I learn something? Why am I reacting so violently to what that person is doing? Why is it triggering me?
It's an opportunity, is what he says in the book. All conflict, whether it's your inner conflict or a conflict with someone else, is an opportunity for growth, right?
It really is.
And so when you are triggered or you're seeing that mirror, what is it? If you look at that from curiosity, you become curious, not going right to judgment, but you're like, what is this? There's a reason I'm just getting this notification on my phone about this emotion, right? So what is it, and where is it attached? And it's an opportunity for healing. It's an opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
And I think about, because there's so many things that all kinds of opposites, and we can get into that kind of mentality of thinking in good and bad terms. But when the fact is, opposites attract for a reason. There's a power in bringing wholeness into, there's a power in the masculine and the feminine coming together. Men deal with things differently than women, but it's not a either or, a right or wrong. Actually, what we find when we come together. And that's one of the things I appreciate about working with you, because we come from different places, different views, but to me, that's our strength, right? Our differences are our strength.
Absolutely.
Diversity, it brings that. I even think in political terms, you know, you have conservative and liberal. You need both. I mean, I'm sorry not to get political on you this morning, but when it's all liberal, we get into problems. When it's all conservative, we get into problems. It doesn't work that way. There was a lot of wisdom that went into forming our government, that you need that balance. You need that. I've heard it described as the right wing and the left wing, right? That bird can't fly with just one wing.
Right.
And so when we don't necessarily, and I'm not saying you got to agree with everything, but you should look and try to understand the other side of that conflict. Why am I having this conflict? And it doesn't mean you're going to change. It doesn't mean you're going to automatically become something you're not. No, you're going to get honest with yourself, and you're going to grow, and you're going to understand things, and you're going to come out stronger.
Yeah. It's, you know, and that's a great thing too. So the conflict, the fear, the whatever it is, we are, especially in this society, gosh, we just shove it away. We short circuit it by blowing our stack and then never coming back to it again or something. This is our opportunity for growth. And the yin and the yang, the both and, the two sides of the coin, the heads and the tails. Think of yourself as a coin if you need to. We have the heads and the tails there for a reason. Like Mike said, a one-winged bird would never fly. We need both of those, the masculine and the feminine, in females and in males. We have both. And for a reason, to a purpose. You know?
Even something you don't agree with, there's a reason someone does hold that idea.
Yeah.
And you can understand yourself even more if you understand it and you can approach it from that perspective.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of where we were talking. There's a quote that I found, that I didn't find. Jim gave it to me from a calendar that he has that is so powerful, because another piece that we will sometimes try to do is create ourselves anew and cut off the past. You know, you wouldn't be where you are now if it wasn't for the path that you took to get there. You don't just land in something without having done something that brought you there. And this quote that Jim shared with me says, "We can't change the events of our lives. They happened, and there they are. But the lines we draw to connect those events, the shapes we make, and the conclusions we reach, those come from us. They are our design." So we can all have so many of the same things happening, and how deeply we're willing to look at ourselves, how friendly we're willing to get with our darkness. And I don't mean, there's another piece of it where people think, it's like with forgiveness. Oh, if you forgive, then it's as if it disappears and it goes away. No, forgiving is forgiving it over. We're not holding on to something each time we're seeing someone, but that forgiving someone or letting go of the tie that binds us to the past, it doesn't mean that we've made it disappear. It doesn't mean that we're going to embrace that person and bring them into our lives to be our whole self. There are going to be people that fit with us and people that don't. As we grow and change, sometimes people will drop away, situations will drop away. We don't have to cut them off with an axe, but our resonance will change as we step more into our wholeness. And that doesn't mean everybody is always going to be with us through the whole journey. And we can make peace with that too.
And it's really about peace and harmony within ourselves. Being able to maintain that and not allowing those beach balls, all of our energy to go into keeping those beach balls under the water.
Right.
Actually allowing ourselves to really look at all of our parts. And, and I think, we've talked about the IFS system before, and I think that really fits into this chapter of understanding that, and I don't want to say here, and Emily Cady does probably the best job, in my opinion, on dealing with this, and I touched on it a little bit last week, the difference between individuality and personality. The individuality part of us, that is our Godness, that is our Christness, that is that whole part of us. Our personality, that is the self that we've created based on those experiences of our life. They've been ways that we have, the things that we've created, masks that we have to try to protect us from the things we went through. And that's not necessarily bad, but understanding that can go a long way of growing into wholeness and completeness. We understand those parts. And, there is this, in psychology, there is this idea of this inner child that has went through trauma, went through things in life, and you can't ignore that.
Right.
You can't just pretend that's not there. There is a ability to actually heal that child and be there. I was sharing with Trish earlier. I heard a lady in an interview talking about how she realized that she had this inner child and this inner teenager, and she realized that her whole life she was trying to give this child to someone else to take care of. If I could just get in the right relationship, they could heal that part of me. Or if I could find the right thing that I could throw myself into, that would bring me peace in life. She said, I realized I was being a bad mother for myself. I was trying to give my inner child away, when really it's about me taking responsibility, allowing God to bring the healing and wholeness through the Christ. And that's really what it's about. And I love how IFS sort of fits into some of what you talked about.
Mike is mentioning IFS, which is a form of therapy. And if you've never been in therapy, I highly recommend it. In order to come here to take this job, when I was up for consideration for this job, Unity Worldwide was discussing the possibility with me, and they said, look, you've got all the biggies. You've got the death of a spouse, the changing of a life. I was bringing my mother into my home to live with me for the first time. I was moving from my home. All these things, one or two of them is a thing. And they said, I won't tell you have to go to therapy. I will just highly recommend it. And and I went in, and there's a kind of therapy called internal family systems therapy. If you have not heard of it, I would suggest you go out and Google it. It is a fantastic form of therapy that talks about our inner child, our inner teenager, all of these things that have gotten stuck inside of us at different traumatic events in our lives. It's this whole chapter, this yin and yang, this looking at the shadow, this willing to be within conflict in a new and different way. It's all part and parcel of that. It's looking at the things that we are avoiding and bringing them into the light. It says in the book, if you feel in conflict with some part of yourself, let that part have a voice. And this is a tool that is recommended in this book, whether you're reading the book or not. This is such a great tool. Journaling. I don't know if you're a journaler, if you've ever tried it, if you haven't tried it. I am one. I don't do it sometimes handwritten. Most of the time now I will just type, and then read it. It's one of the tools in this book that is a fantastic suggestion. I suggest to everybody is, if you're taking something into meditation or prayer or, walking away with that feeling of anger or that feeling of fear, gently go into that and either journal or meditate or pray and give both sides of the coin an equal voice. Here's the key: without judgment. I am so angry about this, and this is why, and let it flow. Every reason, because if you'll let it flow and you can get to the core of what that reason is, allowing that anger to have a voice, allowing it to be fully expressed, it will neutralize. No more beach balls under the water, no more pressure, just the ability to dialogue it.
Because as I was sharing last week as well, there's this natural process. It's this divine order, if you will. Healing will happen. And if we ignore things, they're going to keep coming up until we deal with them, right? And so healing is that. So when we go into this process, when we allow our whole selves to express, the Christ will lead us and guide us and direct us into wholeness. That is what the whole spiritual journey is about.
Amen.
It's about this growth process. And so we can trust that. We can know that when we bring those shadows into the light, we can trust the fact that healing is going to happen. That's the purpose. That's the whole purpose of wholeness and healing. It's this process that we are meant to have.
And I think we're going to leave you with this today from the book. saying you can try to get rid of every bad person outside of you or every bad trait within you, and he or she or it will show up somewhere else in a different form. The individuality knows this because it is whole. So every one of those last nerve kind of people, that relationship that keeps happening again and again with different faces and different places, is there because the individuality is saying, here is your opportunity to shed light on this. This time, can we please bring it to the light so that we don't have to repeat it again? The personality doesn't know this because it's fragmented. All healing is the transcendence of opposites. Wholeness is the product of balancing, reconciling, and integrating opposites. Our wholeness is there. Stop cutting off the end of the rope. Stop thinking the tail side of the coin is bad. And allow ourselves to see all of it as belonging and giving us the tools we need to grow.
And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today.
Trish, Tina, and the production team thank you for joining us. You can submit a prayer request, donate, and find more information on our website at www.unityofsebring.org.